of Peterborough, Kawartha. Today we are debating Bill C39, an act to amend the Criminal Code, medical assistance in dying. Now, I will be referring to it as MAID for the remainder of this speech, to extend the exclusion of persons living with mental illness from being eligible to receive MAID to March 17, 2023. Madam Speaker, we're going to need to rewind a bit to paint a picture of how disturbing this legislation is and how disturbing this conversation and ideology is. In December of 2021, the Senate added an amendment to Bill C7 without any consultation, without any study, without any discussion, to add people with mental illness as eligible for MAID. Madam Speaker, this is gravely concerning and indicative to this reckless Liberal government to add such a serious amendment without due diligence of study and consulting with experts, which targets the most vulnerable. And instead of recognizing the undemocratic and dangerous way the amendment was added and scrapping the entire thing, which should have been what happened, they are proposing simply extending the deadline with an arbitrary date. The MAID Special Joint Committee, which was created after the amendment was added, so how backward is that, heard testimony from many experts, including Dr. John Maher, clinical psychiatrist and medical ethicist, who said, quote, "Psychiatrists don't know and can't know who will get better and live decades of good life. Brain diseases are not liver diseases," end quote. So, of course, today I will support this bill, but let's call it what it is, Madam Speaker, window dressing to a much bigger ideological problem. We do not need to extend the timing of this bill. We need to get rid of making those with mental illness eligible for MAID.
Hear, hear.
Yeah. We need to call out the Liberals for not transferring a dime of their promised $4.5 billion to the Canada Mental Health Transfer. We need to ensure that people at home watching know that we are working diligently to ensure they have timely access to treatment and recovery when they are willing to get it. That is what we need to be doing, Madam Speaker. I urge every member in this House to listen to their constituents and recognize how dangerous this message is we are sending to those struggling. I encourage every member in this House to support my colleague from Abbotsford's Bill C314, which was introduced last Friday, which will solve this problem instead of prolonging and dragging out an amendment that should never have been put there in the first place. Madam Speaker, it is difficult, if not impossible, in the case of mental illness to determine whether someone can recover, whether they can get better, or whether they can get healthy. So you can appreciate how dangerous a bill like this is. I'm going to read into the record a letter that was recently sent to me. Dear Michelle Ferreri, my name is Kayla. I'm going to be sending this letter to several MPs, but as you are the MP presiding over the constituency where I reside, I thought I should send this to you first. I'm very troubled by something that is going to be happening very soon in this country, and I hope you will listen to what I have to say. Overall, I am a very healthy individual. I have a mental health condition, but it is my sole medical condition. However, I was mortified to discover last month that medical assistance in dying, MAID for short, will be available to people whose sole health condition is a mental health condition as of March 17, 2023. Persons who suffer from mental health conditions suffer horribly. I know that. I've suffered with mine for nearly 12 years. Perhaps the most appalling things of all are that the law, this is a quote, "The law no longer requires a person's natural death to be reasonably foreseeable as an eligibility criterion for MAID." Government of Canada, 2021. And there is no obligation for a person or their health care practitioners to inform family members if that person has requested or received MAID. I think you are an intelligent person, Michelle. I think you see this for what it is. As of March 17th, 2023, I will be eligible to end my own life on the basis that I have an incurable mental illness. Let me give you a bit more background. I have 2 university degrees in biology and environmental science. I have a job that I love and have held since a little while after I graduated. I've never failed to pay taxes, nor have I ever taken extended leave or gone on EI due to my mental illness, no matter how hard it gets. I have family and friends that I love dearly, and they love me too. And yet now, my own government has deemed my life not worth living. This just isn't unfair. This is monstrous. But it gets worse. What about those people who are in the same boat that I am medically, but are much, much worse off? They cannot pay their taxes because they cannot work. They have a substance addiction. They are veterans with PTSD. They are homeless because they cannot seem to fight off their demons. These are some of the most vulnerable people in our society, to say nothing of the nature of the mature minors, whatever on earth that means, that will be able to access MAID in the future if this doesn't stop. Make no mistake, this thing that we dress up with a nice name MAID is euthanasia of our most vulnerable people because they cannot contribute to society like others can. The fact that the government would offer to get them out of the way, convince them that they should die in this way just because the systems that the government put in place are failing them, is an unspeakable evil. I hope, Michelle, that you will do everything in your power as an MP, as I will do everything in my power as a citizen to abolish this law. I understand the federal government is seeking to push back the timing of this law, likely because it has received so much criticism. I understand that it likely wasn't you that made any of the decisions for this law to go ahead, but I also understand that you are in more of a position to do something about it than many other people are. I hope you will respond after reading this letter. Sincerely, Kayla. I did talk to Kayla, and it was a heartbreaking conversation, and she's living very well, and I would like to give Kayla a round of applause for being so brave to share that letter. This letter says everything Canadians need to hear. We need to be sending a message of hope and recovery, not a message that your life doesn't matter. I will leave you with one final story. Elise is a young university student, and she chatted with me during the Christmas break. She said, Michelle, I need to tell you something. I'm so worried about this legislation to extend MAID to those with mental illness. I've struggled with mental illness, and I know with certainty that if someone had have offered that to me during my times of illness, I would not be here today. I wouldn't be getting my university degree, I wouldn't be in a happy, healthy relationship, and I wouldn't know that my life is worth living. Madam Speaker, we have a duty in this House to bring hope and create legislation that provides a better life for Canadians. And a better life means access to help when you need it. I urge every MP in this House to listen to the experts and to listen to Canadians and not just extend an arbitrary deadline, but drop this dangerous and reckless legislation. To everyone at home watching, families who are supporting those with mental illness, those who are living with mental illness, we see you. You are worth fighting for. Your life is worth it. Thank you.
Good job.
Questions et commentaires. Questions and comments. The honourable member for Longueuil-Charlemagne.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank the member opposite for her intervention. And sorry, I'm starting to lose my voice today. One of the things I've been hearing this evening in some of our debates from my colleagues across the way is that we need to look at this and make sure we take the time to do this and put in place the supports and the infrastructure that's going to be required. And that is exactly what this bill is going to do, is to take the time. So I'd like to ask the member opposite if she's in agreement with us extending this 1 year so that we can take a look at it and make sure the supports are there and the infrastructure is there in terms of medical assistance in dying. Thank you.
Honourable member for Peterborough, Kawartha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for the question. No, you have to invest in what gives people hope. There is no research. The experts, the Special Joint Committee, they've done the research. This is window dressing. This is an arbitrary timeline to something that is dangerous. There's no proof, there's no science. You cannot say with certainty whether somebody with mental illness will or will not get better. So absolutely, we need to invest. $4.5 billion was promised by this Liberal government to invest in the Canada Mental Health Transfer. Not one dime has been sent. Not one. What are you saying to people at home who are struggling? Oh yeah, we care about you, but you know what? We're not going to invest in access to treatment. We're going to invest in legislation that allows you to apply for MAID. It's wrong.
And comments, the Honourable Member for St. Albert Edmonton.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank my friend, the member for Peterborough Kawartha, for her thoughtful speech. And she's absolutely right when she says there isn't the science, there isn't the evidence to support this expansion. Indeed, the overwhelming evidence at the Special Joint Committee, of which I'm a co-vice chair, was precisely the opposite. Now, the honourable member for Longueuil asked the member about whether it was appropriate to extend the deadline to essentially get it right. But evidence before the committee from a leading psychiatrist was that the medical error rate on the question of irremediability could be anywhere from 2% to 95%. So in the face of that, it would seem to me that there are no safeguards to get this right. The only thing to do to get it right is to scrap this ill-conceived.
The Honourable Member for Peterborough Kawartha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my honourable colleague. He is such a wealth of knowledge and facts when it comes to this legislation. And he, unlike the Liberals, has done the due diligence. I mean, that's the reality. The facts speak for themselves. The Special Joint Committee, there's hours and hours and hours on this. And it was all done backwards. So I absolutely agree with him and thank him so much for his intervention and his work on this file.
The
Honourable Member for Rimouski. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I thank my colleague for her speech, of course, sharing personal stories. Well, it's very moving. But it's interesting to see the Conservatives say they're basing that we should be basing decisions based on science, given their relationship with science over the past years. But, Madam Speaker, our colleague said that we didn't have data or evidence, but the people who are calling for a delay right now, well, the final report of the expert panel put forward 19 recommendations. Those experts are part of professional associations. So, of course, they're using scientific data. These are people who have expertise. I'd like to hear from my colleague. Does she not recognize the expertise of those people? That's the essential question we're asking here tonight.
Honourable Member for Peterborough Kawartha.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for the question. I think we're saying the same thing repeatedly in here, and the experts have weighed in. You cannot, with certainty, scientifically, predict whether or not someone will or will not recover from a mental illness. So if you want to take that risk and roll Russian roulette, I guess that's your answer. But the data is already there, which we've seen repeatedly.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Manning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We have been here before with the Liberals scrambling to meet a deadline, unable to get their act together. In this case, though, perhaps the delay will provide us with the opportunity to get things right.